Welcome to the kingdom. I'm Chris, and this is Good Enough Gaming. Howdy folks, and welcome to this Army Showcase video. I just finished painting this commission for a friend. He gave me all of his Havoc Dwarves so that we could play some Regiments games because while I have people who are willing to play, the number of armies that they have is usually limited to one. And so to try and mix things up a bit, he said, well, I got a whole bunch of armies. Which one do you think would be most fun to see on the channel? And I said, you know what? It's very rare that people get to see Havoc Dwarves, or if you're familiar with the Old World, the Chaos Dwarves. So he gave me everything that he had for his Havoc Dwarves. I got them painted up. They're ready, and so hopefully in the next couple weeks you guys will see a one-page rules regiments battle report using these guys, and who knows, maybe we'll have a dwarf on dwarf civil war going on. I'm not sure. We'll have to see what comes to the battlefield, but I wanted to show this off. I didn't do any individual model painting tutorials, but instead I figured let's at least look at the entire army in a showcase. And I'm going to be using the terminology from the one-page rules army list. So I don't know what these are called from the specific STL designer. These all come from Lost Kingdom miniatures. So I'm not sure what they call them, but this is what they probably be referred to in one-page rules. Let's start off with our characters. He gave me 3 of them. So first over here, we have what you could probably take as an Iron Champion and turn it into a Berserker of some kind. And he told me when I was painting it to mix up the skin tones, like have lots of darker skin tones. So for this guy, I decided to give him like an ebony, almost like super dark, like what you'd see if you played Salamanders in 40K. So there's the Berserker dwarf there. And then in the middle here, we have 2 that you could use as Iron Champions or Abyssal Leaders. Both of them clearly have some details that would lend themselves to magic. So one of them we got here with the yellow flame holding the axe, and the other one here, just to mix it up, I gave him some purple flames. Now, he said to do a little bit more detail on the characters. So these guys got, a couple extra layers of highlighting, a little more attention to detail. But for the rank and file, they just got a basic tabletop standard. So these guys will get a nice close-up because I spent a little bit more time on them. So over here, we have your lightest infantry. So these could be used as warriors, probably not slaves. They look like they're too well armored to be slaves, but there's a basic unit of 20 warriors. And one thing I learned when painting all of these is he said use lots of metallic. So I have gold, I have silver or iron, I have bronze, and I have brass. And something I learned painting these, you have to be very careful when you're doing a lot of metallic paints because too many side by side and they start to clash a bit. So you got to make sure that you use washes to tone them down, to put an opaque color in between where 2 metals are going to meet if possible to kind of break it up a bit. Because for some reason when you put metallic paint next to metallic paint, they don't always get along as well as a regular color could. So it was interesting trying to make these guys all metallic, because the whole army, as you'll see, lots of metallic, but to still give them some kind of flair to them. So every single army had, or every single unit at least gave it some kind of a cloth covering. One, to distinguish a unit from a unit, but also so that there's a little bit of color in there and it's not just all metallic. So here you've got your warriors armed with axes and shields, a full command, although there happen to be 2 banners, so I wonder if I accidentally got these guys misorganized. Whoops, but at least they're painted, right? Okay, over here you have your heavy infantry. So these you're probably going to run as your immortals. I think that's what the OPR unit would call them there. Now, they normally come in a unit of 5, so you wouldn't be able to take a big block of 20 like this. Then over here, you've got another unit of elites, and these ones have great weapons, so these you could also run as immortals and just change out their profile a bit. So you could have one unit of immortals with sword and shield, or sword and axe, and then this one with the great swords. You could also run these as berserkers, although I think they have a little too much army to be berserkers, but hey, they're Havoc Dwarves. They don't follow rules. And I experimented a little bit with the blades here because I wanted the blades to stick out since that's a major part of it. So I just painted the edge of the blades a bright red that will match the color of the tabard that they have as well. Oh, and I forgot to show back here, these guys, I painted them like a burgundy or a purple. All right, back here we've got ourselves units of shooters. Pretty easy to tell that these are the shooters because they got great big things there that shoot, don't you know? Again, these can only go in a unit of 5, and it looks like I was missing one. So I checked in the box, and I didn't have any spare models, so I'm going to have a bit of a chinwag with my buddy to see what happened to the missing shooter. Now this piece here, I love the way that it looks. I love the aesthetic of this massive monstrous beast that's enchained and enslaved, and its rage at being enslaved is turned against the enemy. So you've got these two guys here trying to lead it into the battle and hoping that the beast doesn't just grab them and mash them together. So that one, you could probably run it as, I don't know, let's see here. You could run it as a grotesque, a unit of grotesques. You might be able to run it as, I saw with Lost Kingdom, the company that makes them, they actually have this as a filler. The way they put it on their website, you actually fit this unit into a unit like these so that you can bulk out the unit without needing quite so many models. But I think you could run that as some kind of monster vehicle stand-in or something like that just because of the way that it looks. But that one was a lot of fun to paint. Then on either side, we've got small artillery, those ballista there. So the Havoc, they just have one setting for artillery, but inside that, you can play around with it a little. They only have 2 options, which is kind of a bummer. But under vehicles and monsters, they also have siege wagons. So for example, these would probably be artillery, and the siege engines we'll get to in just a minute. Over here, we absolutely have our golems. So I actually had to paint these twice, because the first time I painted them, the rock was too light. And rather than looking like, magma golems or something like that, they looked like something you'd find in the hills or the mountains above the ground. So I had to repaint them and really darken down that gray rock, and then paint the saliva and everything coming out of their mouths to make it look more like flame and like lava. So you really get the idea that these golems are animated by fire, by magma, by intense heat, something like that. But I'm really pleased at the way that these guys turned out. And then in the back row here, we have a unit of 5 of these bull centaurs. And the one in the middle is actually a character. So we'll give him a little more attention here. But he fits really well into the unit there. Now that does mean that typically a unit of bull centaurs, it comes in a unit of 3. So you'd either be able to have 1 but not 2. So my buddy might have to pick up another bull centaur somewhere in order to get 2 full units. But as it appears now, these were cool. I gave these a little bit of extra detail and attention on them just because there's only 5 of them, and being bigger models, they really deserve it. Whereas when you're painting 30 warriors all armed with boomsticks, yeah, I understand now. What was it? One of my viewers referred to it as the cheerleader effect, that just a basic tabletop standard in a group suddenly enhances the paint job by a few levels, and they're not wrong. Okay, so here's the stuff that really makes the Havoc Dwarves, and that is their immense war machines. So this one was pretty cool. I'm going to go around the side here so you can get a full look at it. But here's an artillery piece that's made to look like a Lamassu. So I think the whole aesthetic for this army is ancient Babylon. But this was a lot of fun to paint. Now, it is with this model here and the other siege engine that I did run into some of the problem with 3D printing. Now this one's not too bad. In fact, it fit together very, very nicely. Most of the pieces aligned quite cleanly. The other one, not quite so much. And if we turn this so we can get a shot at behind, I mean, how nasty is that? We've got sacrifices to this thing that get fed into the maw there and then spit out the front. I'm not sure I want to think too much about the entire process, but you can see underneath there the gore that comes out as I guess it poops them out, but that's pretty nasty. And here's the other siege engine. This one looks like a bolt thrower. So I didn't want them to be both the same kind of metal, so I painted this one a lighter brass and the other one a darker bronze. But you can see on this, it did not go together quite so cleanly, and that's after me shaving and clipping and really trying to get those pieces to fit. They fought me quite a bit. So while I still sing the praises of 3D printing, these bigger pieces that are put together from smaller ones, between the printing, the curing, there must be a little bit of shrinking, warping, bending, because the pieces don't always fit together as cleanly as I wish they would. So hopefully, as 3D printing technology gets better, pieces will fit together nicer. And once they do, you are going to see miniature companies either have to switch to 3D printing and selling STL files, or I think they're going to go the way of the dodo. Because, I mean, just look at these. These are outstanding centerpieces. These are awesome models. Could you imagine how much something like this would cost from GW? This would probably be between $150, $200 for this model kit if it were sold from Games Workshop. But instead, I imagine the STL file was probably about $20. And then there was probably maybe $5, $10 worth of resin. So right now, the trade-off is it's really cheap, but it doesn't fit together that perfectly. Whereas plastic fits together much nicer, but you're paying a premium, especially if the company jacks up the price. All right, so there they are. There's the Havoc Dwarves. Look for a bat rep with these guys in probably the next few weeks or so. Any comments you have, put them down below. I look forward to reading them. And I'll see you on the next one. So keep your dice on the table.